Hello, and welcome back to Microsoft PowerPoint. In this module, we want to be talking about working with objects. And working with objects, let's say first we want to select an object. And when you select an object, as you notice, you get your placeholder around that object. And with that object, you can either move, we discussed this earlier in previous modules, you can move the object around, up and down. With the handle we discussed, where you can rotate the object. We also discussed in the previous module where the little orange dot gives you the function of resizing or reshaping that object. And then what I want to discuss in this one is selecting multiple objects. Now to select multiple objects, you can do one or two things. You can either hit your control and select the next module, the next object, and now you can do the same thing with with multiple objects. Now, after you have selected more than one object or multiple objects, you can do the same thing. You can move those objects together. The same thing now if you have a rotating handle. If you rotate one, as long as they're selected, you can rotate both to select the objects. Click off. Another method of selecting objects, multiple objects, is you can drag and you can put what we call the net feature on the object. Now notice here, it should only pick up the two objects that are in that net. If I wanted more objects, whatever object I had selected, let's do these three. Now you have the three. Notice that the line which is an object was not selected because it was not fully covered with the net. And so I have the same functionality. I can move all the objects at one time. I'm using my cursor key, my arrow key. You use arrow, or I can use in this method right here. Go undo. And then once again, I want to do the net. This time I want to include the line also. I don't know if okay, there we go. Now you notice the line because it was covered in the net. And then the same features you can do, move everything like that. Another way of selecting, if I want to select all the objects, I can select one object. I can do Control A. Control A. And Control A selects all the objects on that slide. And the same features, you can move everything around in with the same rotation. Now I want to remove some of these objects just so we can have, because I want to clear up make some space. So I select the object, I hit delete key. I select the object, or you can do you can simply delete. And I want to reposition cover just for, matter of fact, let's take this sign out too. I want to delete this one also. Now, the next thing I want to do is show us how to copy. When we make another object, let's say I want to do the star. I can do a right click, and I can do copy and paste. Or I can do, do right click, then we can copy. And I can right click and paste. Now, if you notice, now I have the same object twice. I'm going to take that one off. Or you can do Control C and Control V, and that will give you the same thing, copy and paste. Let's remove this one. Now, one of the simpler ways of doing this is just simply hit Control D. Hit the Control and the D key. What you're actually doing is you're duplicating that object. So that way you have fewer keystrokes. It's a little less time consuming if you just duplicate it instead of using the other two methods. Either method is preferred. Whatever works for you best is what we recommend that you do. Now, let's say I want to do a bunch of these. Let's say a bunch. Let's go Control D. Now I have a bunch of objects. Now let's say I want to keep the objects in a group instead of moving them one by one, because one by one be kind of hard to find. So you can do moving one by one. You can put the net that we talked about before. You can cover every one. Then when you cover every one, now you have it as a group. And you can move those all as a group. Let's say you want to make it look like some type of explosion. And you can move them all as one instead of individually. And then if you want to move them individually, you have to click one and then move one. click one, and then move one, depending on what it is that you're trying to do in your presentation. Let's Control Z, get out of this one. Now this is what I have right now for working with objects. We talked about selecting, moving, and rotating objects, and we also talked about cutting and copying and pasting objects. In the next model, we want to go over formatting objects, and we'll go to a little more detail about what we do with the objects on our presentation. Until then, God bless you.